Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 20, Conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. Text 17. So nuvisto Bhagavata Yashete Salilasaye Loka Samstam Yata Purvam Nimrame Samstaya Swaya So nuvisto Bhagavata Yashete Salilasaye Loka Samstam Yata Purvam Nimrame Samstaya Swaya So nuvisto Bhagavata Yashete Salilasaye Loka Samstam Yata Purvam Nimrame Samstaya Swaya Vaishnavis. Sa, Lord Brahma, Anuvishta, was entered, Bhagavata, by the Lord. Ya, who, Shete, sleeps, Salila Asaye, on the Garbhodaka ocean. Lokasangstam, the universe. Yata Purvam, as previously. Nirmame, created. Samstaya, by intelligence. Swaya, his own. Translation: when that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is lying on the Garbhodaka ocean, entered the heart of Brahma, Brahma brought his intelligence to bear, and with the intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. Purport: at a certain time, the personality of Godhead, Gauranadakashaya Vishnu, lies in the Karana ocean and produces many thousands of universes from his breathing. Then he enters again into each and every universe as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu and fills up half of each universe with his own perspiration. The other half of the universe remains vacant and that vacant region is called outer space. Then the lotus flower sprouts from his abdomen and produces the first living creature, Brahma. Then again, as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, the Lord enters into the heart of every living entity, including Brahma. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. The Lord says, I am seated in everyone's heart, and by me are remembrance and forgetfulness made possible. As the witness of the activities of the individual entities, the Lord gives each one remembrance and intelligence to act according to his desire at the time he was annihilated in his last birth in the last millennium. This intelligence is invoked according to one's own capacity or by the law of karma. Brahma was the first living entity, and he was empowered by the Supreme Lord to act in charge of the mode of passion. Therefore, he was given the required intelligence, which is so powerful and extensive that he is almost independent of the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a highly posted manager is almost as independent as the owner of a firm, Brahma is described here as independent because, as the Lord's representative to control the universe, he is almost as powerful and independent as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord, as the supersoul within Brahma, gave him the intelligence to create. The creative power, therefore, of every living entity is not his own. It is by the grace of the Lord that one can create. There are many scientists and great workers in this material world who have wonderful creative force, but they act and create only according to the direction of the Supreme Lord. A scientist may create many wonderful inventions by the direction of the Lord, but it is not possible for him to overcome the stringent laws of material nature by his intelligence, nor is it possible to acquire such intelligence from the Lord, for the Lord's supremacy would then be hampered. It is stated in this verse that Brahma created the universe as it was before. This means he created everything by the same name and form as in the previous cosmic manifestation. Translation again. When that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was lying on the Garbhodaka ocean, entered the heart of Brahma, Brahma brought his intelligence to bear. And with that intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. Om Agana Chimadandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You're hearing information about Lord Brahma, known as Adi Kavi, the original intellectual of the universe. And you're also hearing that he is the first created being. He emerges from the lotus flower coming from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So this sounds incredible to our age of Kali ears. We are ready to consider that life comes from matter. We are ready to consider that machines can become conscious, but we hesitate to consider that there are living beings thousands and millions of times more intelligent than human beings. Just see our bias. You can read in the media, will it be possible for AI, artificial intelligence, to become smarter than human beings? Will machines become conscious and take over the world? So that sound vibration deadens your spiritual intelligence. You keep hearing that and you kind of accept it as, could be, who knows, who knows what wonders human beings can do in the future. Yeah, they're the summit of creation, the pinnacle of the evolutionary process. We become deadened by hearing that over and over again. So much so that when we hear about Brahma, the first living entity, taking birth from a lotus flower, which comes from the navel of Govardhan Vishnu, okay, this is what you're supposed to believe as a Hare Krishna? All right, I guess I'm on board, at least for this year. Fortunately, we have the Bhaktivedanta purports, which push us to think deeply. And that is something that's rare these days, to think deeply. Because the whole society is constructed, and the whole consumer society is constructed in a way as to debilitate the thinking process. Just think, if you want to control everyone, you don't want them to think. Actually, political leaders have told me this. One former prime minister told me, we don't want people to think. We don't want them going to the university and then having the idea that just because I have a university degree, I can tell the government what to do. We don't want that. So he was telling me, you want to go to the university? Okay, but a trade is going to make more money than you. We'll put you in your place. And that's exactly what's happened. We're surrounded by weapons of mass distraction. And yet when we hear about the most intelligent being, Lord Brahma, we think, this is kind of mythological. How could persons be that intelligent? Just because we're so dumb, we think anything beyond us is hypothetical, mythological fiction. But Brahma is dependent on the supersoul in the heart. As this purport quotes Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Shachaham Hriti Sanivishto Matasmitir Gyanam Apohanam Cha. From the Lord in the heart comes all remembrance and all forgetfulness. As I often like to point out, we are so tiny and helpless that if we want to forget Krishna, we need his help. You would think, well, I need Krishna's help to remember him. True, but forgetting Krishna, well, that's no big deal, especially in the age of Kali. Especially in the Mawilumbai area. I mean, no. So, we need Krishna's help to forget him. And what's the purpose of forgetting Krishna? So you can be a first-class materialist. Sometimes when persons are approaching bhakti, who have some kind of material qualification, material kriya, they worry that by becoming Krishna conscious, I'll lose my competitive edge. I won't be able to survive in the competitive world as it is today. Of course, you point out to them, look at Arjuna. Arjuna is not a brahmachari, he's not a sannyasi, he's a family man and a warrior. He's not a brahmana. Yet Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to him. So this notion that the more spiritual you become, the more materially ineffective you become, is just foolishness. But because we have this fear that there's such a thing as too much Krishna, although there's no verse like that in Bhagavad Gita which tells you to worry about too much Krishna, we have that fear that if I get too much into spiritual life, I'll lose contact with reality. What is the reality? So even to forget Krishna, we need his help because we're so tiny, so dependent. And certainly we need Krishna's help to remember him. So Brahma, as the first living entity, requires intelligence. Now one interesting point is, Brahma is he's creating the universe in terms of, he's the secondary creator in terms of taking the materials of the cosmic manifestation and constructing the planetary systems, the 14 planetary systems, 7 up, 7 down. I remember Srila Prabhupada speaking in Los Angeles about the planetary systems and and explaining the 7 up, 7 down. Have you seen at night the lower planets in the sky? But there are 14 planetary systems. Then he would challenge, how many have you seen? What are you going to say? We're so conditioned by our limited perception. So Bhagavatam prepares you to understand that there are different levels of living beings, different places with different potencies. The universe is full of variety. So just like there's Brahma, who's millions of times more intelligent than a human being, there are places in the universe that are a million times more materially happy than the Earth planet. Similarly, in terms of spiritual development, there are different places with different potencies. The whole system of variety is based on the desire of the living entity. What do you want? So material nature, when it's time for you to take birth, material nature basically says, I've got a vehicle for you. What's your desire and what's your karma? Just like everyone, when they choose to get a new car, everyone may want a Mercedes or a BMW, but can you afford it? Similarly, everyone would want the body that gives the most sense gratificatory possibilities. But do you have the karma to pay for it? So the Bhagavatam is teaching us the skill of seeing variegatedness in everything. Variegatedness in the different levels of material bodies. Variegatedness in terms of the different planets, even different places on the planet. So in this way, you exercise your tiny independence. Let me go to the heavenly planets. Let me go to the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Sydney, Melbourne. According to your material desire, you go to different places. And similarly, according to your spiritual desire, you go to different places. The universe is completely fair. It gives you what you want, but you have to be able to pay for it. And you pay with karma. So in the case of Brahma creating the universe, you notice that as a witness of the activities of the individual entities, the Lord gives each one remembrance and intelligence to act according to his desire at the time he was annihilated in his last birth in the last millennium. So your material desires, and sometimes they're so precious to us, they're going to stick with you even after the cosmic annihilation. So why not do something about them now? We like to cultivate our material desires. They're my desires. I'll give them up when I want to. When they're problematic, then I don't want anything to do with them. But when good times are there, yes, my material desires. How long are they going to be with us? They can be with you after the cosmic annihilation. When you merge into the body of Mahavishnu, your karmic propensities, your propensities for karmic activity are also there with you. And so, when the universe is recreated again, you emerge with your desires that you had in the previous cosmic manifestation. So we definitely need to do something about our desires right now. Because again and again, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, bhutva bhutva praliyate, the universe is created and annihilated again and again and again. So how much longer do we want to go through all this? That's a question each one of us has to understand. You like to look at your body and feel its potential until you're in old age. When you get old, you'll realize old age is worse than death. But I remember during Prabhupada's time with us, one elderly gentleman in his 70s came to see Prabhupada. And before he left, in his British, polished, cultured way, he said to the young devotees, because all the devotees back then were in their 20s or early 30s at the oldest, he said, "You don't understand what your Swamiji has done. I know. I'm 70 such and such. I know what it's like to do what he did at his age. Or I didn't do that, but I can understand what it took for him to do what he did at that elderly age." So we don't realize how debilitating old age is. So much so that people are thinking, let me just terminate my life right now. Why go through it? But that is the result, that process of birth, death, old age, and disease. What we learn as a new devotee. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. Birth, death, disease, and old age. And then when you become an older devotee, what do you think? All right, I know all that. I've heard it all before. Our material desires drag us through all these material situations. So much so that we take our desires with us at the total cosmic annihilation and are reborn to try again in the next cosmic manifestation. So what is this about being Brahma? You have to have the topmost qualifications in the universe. Sometimes there's a living entity not qualified enough to take the post of Brahma, and so the Supreme Personality of Godhead takes the post himself. To be Brahma, you have to do these things. 100 births straight of flawless execution of Varnashram Dharma. Not just do it for one birth, but 100 births straight. Then you can be Brahma. Or, as the Bhagavatam tells us, inconceivable as it is to us, when you first enter material existence, you do so in the post of Brahma, because your slate is relatively clean. You only desire to imitate Krishna, that's all. But you haven't performed any gross sinful activities. So, you begin as Brahma and then descend down as low as a microbe. So to become Brahma from within the material universe, 100 lifetimes of perfect execution as a Brahmana in Varnashram Dharma. We couldn't even do that for one day. Now, there's another qualification. There's another qualification of being Brahma that probably we've never thought much of. This is all described in the 9th canto of Bhagavatam in the conversation between Jamadagni and Parashuram, Lord Parashuram, Keshavadrita, Brigupati Rupa Jai Jagatisha. Jamadagni explains to Parashuram that a Brahmana cultures the quality of forgiveness, which is illuminating as the sun. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased by this quality of the Brahmana, forgiveness. It's so much so it is that, Bhagavatam explains, Lord Brahma became qualified to take up his post because of forgiveness. Astounding, isn't it? So in the purport of one of those verses, the Bhagavatam explains that different personalities, different people show beauty in different ways. It's not all one. That is one of the themes of this class. Everything is not all one. There's variegatedness, and that variegatedness is there for a reason. So different varnas, different occupations have different ways of showing beauty. Different places have different ways of showing beauty. In other words, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, the whole universe is full of variety and for a reason. And of course, what about the spiritual world? Unlimited variegatedness without distortion. But the problem with material varieties is perversion, distortion. So different persons, just like different places, have different spiritual dynamics. There's something for everyone. Different wombs of mothers have different possibilities for self-realization. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dharma varudo bhuteshu kamosmi paratarshava. Krishna says, I am the reproductive process when done according to Dharma, because that Dharma creates a womb situation that attracts a certain caliber of living entity. So it's not that all wombs are one, all places are one. There are differences. So what about the differences in terms of the differences in beauty in terms of different types of persons? You can start with just nature. So Chanaka Pandit says, as quoted by Prabhupada, that even though a cuckoo bird, they have cuckoo birds in Australia? Yes. A cuckoo bird is very dark. Still, it is beautiful because of the sound of its voice. So the beauty of a cuckoo bird is the sweetness of its chirping. An ugly person, Chanaka Pandit explains, is beautiful by the accumulation of knowledge. Controversial these days, at least point raised by Chanaka Pandit is, a woman is beautiful by faithfulness and chasteness to the husband. Next one. And what about the Varna system? Occupations. The Brahmana is beautiful by forgiveness. Kshatriya, Vedic warrior, manager, is beautiful by heroism, never fleeing in battle, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Yuddhe chapyapalayana, never turns back on the battle. A Vaishya is beautiful by staging cultural performances and protecting cows. And a Shudra, a laborer, is beautiful by following the orders of the higher occupations, the other occupations. So what we're honing in on today is the beauty of a Brahmana is forgiveness. And often as devotees, we know how difficult that is. There's something about us, Hare Krishnas, that once we feel offended, we never forgive. That's it. May you go to hell. You have offended me. But this 9th canto section is very interesting, pointing out that a Brahmana's duty is to cultivate forgiveness. And in that way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased. Just think about a duty to forgive. You usually think, well, if I want to forgive, that's my private affair. I may consider it after 50 years. You feel power in that. I'm not letting go. No, I'm not forgiving. That Prabhu did this and that and the other. I'm not forgiving. You feel a sense of power in that. But that's not a Brahmana. Kshatriya, Vedic warriors, that's another thing. Their beauty is not to forgive. But the Brahmanas are the head of the social body. The Kshatriyas are supposed to take guidance from the Brahmanas. And the Brahmanas, like the sun with its illuminations, the Brahmana sheds the light of forgiveness. So this is something to really think about. My duty, if I'm a Brahmana, my duty is to forgive? Whether you're Brahmana or Brahmani, your duty is to forgive. And that way please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that way you become beautiful? Who would think you become beautiful by forgiveness? So Bhagavatam is teaching us that there are differences in beauty, differences in places, differences in intelligence. So we're hearing about Lord Brahma, Adi Kavi, the first created being, and he has an immense responsibility. But he's dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the purport, Prabhupada talks about material scientists who they seem to create many wonderful inventions, but it's all by the direction of the Lord. And if the scientists with such talent for creating so many wonderful devices, if you consider them to be so brilliant, what about the small item of conquering the laws of nature, birth, death, disease, and old age? That you don't see. In fact, you see technological brilliance in mass annihilation, weapons of mass destruction. Even in creating havoc with such destructive weaponry, the technologists are helpless without inspiration from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who from within their heart, all right, you want to kill? Here's a way to kill people quicker, even though everyone's dying. How about killing them quicker? That's what you want to do? So the Lord in the heart gives them the intelligence. Similarly, if we want intelligence, how to go back to Godhead, Krishna is there, guiding everyone. Go here, go there, be there. Take birth in this womb, go to this place. Act in this way. You want to be a real Brahmana? Forgive. Practice the duty of forgiveness. So we may, going back to how we started, we may think, this is so fantastic and so, Supreme Personality Godhead lying on the Govardhan ocean, an ocean created by the perspiration of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, filling up half the universe, leaving the other half empty to be known as outer space, and then lying down, floating on the waves, and out from the navel comes a lotus flower. Do you expect me to believe that? This is 2024. Humans have shown such extraordinary ability. If we were restrained by all this Shastra, how would we ever have the drive, the determination to create the wonders that we've created today? Some say like that. Your spirituality has held back human progress because you're trying to say that there's something that can't be known by our material senses. That's an offense. By saying that there's something beyond the range of human perception, you're denying the ability of science to know this and know that. Not all scientists say like that, but there are some flagrant ones who speak like that. We're accustomed to such ignorance, living in a world of such ignorance. We're fascinated by a proliferation of technological devices, which are nothing compared to the mystic powers of living entities far more competent than human beings. When you think of the ignorance that we're accustomed to living in, and still thinking we're advanced, it's shocking. Just like take astrophysics. It's very easy to understand. You say there was a Big Bang. Can you tell us what happened before the Big Bang? What was there to explode in the Big Bang? You know what many scientists will tell you? You can't answer. You can't ask that question because before the Big Bang there was no time and space. Therefore, the question makes no sense. I've heard it many times. So that's astrophysics. What about biological evolutionary theory? No one knows how, according to their belief system, how from pre-existing simple life forms came complex life forms. No one knows the process. And as Prabhupada very bluntly pointed out, you say it happened in the past, why is it happening now, in the present? So, honest scientists, and there are those, they'll admit, when it comes to biological evolutionary theory, we don't know the process. Darwin is speculating, it should be like this, it should be like that. There's no proof. We actually don't know the mechanism. How from pre-existing simple life forms came complex life forms that we have today. And of course, when they say complex life forms that we have today, they know nothing about Lord Brahma. They know nothing about the residents of the heavenly planets. They just take human beings as the pinnacle of creation. What about chemical evolutionary theory? No one knows how from inanimate chemicals came living entities, came the first cell. No one knows. This is massive ignorance. But don't worry about all of that. Look at the devices we have for you. Have you got the latest iPhone? We're so accustomed to ignorance about the most essential questions. And then when Bhagavatam raises these questions and answers them, oh, a bit mythological there. This is why it's necessary, Nityam Bhagavata Seva, regularly hear Srimad Bhagavatam. As Lord Chaitanya advises, before you are liberated, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and after you are liberated, go on hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the literary presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by regularly hearing Bhagavatam, your intelligence changes, your circuits become rewired. Otherwise, it's very difficult to remain afloat in an ocean of ignorance in which you're constantly being bombarded with ignorance, with delusion, with material desires. So I was telling devotees yesterday that every human being has the responsibility to situate himself or herself in a way that you can achieve the height of your spiritual desires. Not selfishness, but devotional service. So Lord Brahma has achieved the pinnacle in the material universe, but still he has something to learn. That's why in Damodar Leela, Krishna wants to make it known to not only Brahma, but also Shiva, also Lakshmi Devi, that there's some kind of love of Krishna far beyond attraction to Narayan in awe and reverence. There's spontaneous love. But Damodar doesn't want that known to everyone. He wants it to be known to those who are qualified, who can understand, first of all, Namam Ishvaram, Satchidanandarupam, as we sang during the month of Kartik. I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Controller. First understand that, and then we move on into the realm of spontaneous love of Krishna. Yashoda Bio Lukala Davamanam. Mother Yashoda chasing after Krishna. When Krishna can't be caught by the greatest mystic yogis, they can't even attain the tips of the toes of his lotus feet. And Mother Yashoda catches Krishna from behind, like an ordinary criminal is apprehended by the police. So Krishna wants that to be known to all the Brahmas, because every universe has a Brahma. There are countless universes, countless Brahmas. As you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, some Brahmas have a few heads, like this Brahma in this universe. It's a small universe, so Brahma only has 4 heads. There are other universes where Brahma has dozens and hundreds and thousands of heads because the universes are much bigger. So what do we say to that? Time for prasadam. We're so puny, and we refuse to accept the ramifications of being so puny. How will we know if there are other Brahmas? How will we even know if there's a Brahma in this universe? We're so dependent. But our perfection is to depend on authorized knowledge. So we accept Srimad Bhagavatam, not just because, well, it's our holy book. You got your holy book. You've got the Bible. You've got the Quran. We got the Bhagavatam. That's all I know. Well, that's something to have that understanding, but you can go much deeper and understand the science of Srimad Bhagavatam, and in that way you'll be protected against the onslaughts of ignorance. All right, any questions? Okay.
Hare Krishna. My question is, what exactly is forgiveness? What does it mean? What do you supposed to do? Just forget, or how do you practice it?
Well, if you go to any New Age bookstore, the shelves are loaded with books about when to forgive and when not to forgive. How to apologize, how not to apologize. I mean, do you really mean it when you say you're sorry? It's not so complex. The first thing is no taking revenge. And believe me, even for devotees, that's a hard one. No retaliation. Ooh. That's what Jamadagni was telling Parashuram in that situation. Parashuram had retaliated massively, and Jamadagni was telling him, you're a Brahmana. Why all this retaliation? So that much we could understand. And that's a great improvement. No taking revenge, no retaliation. Even in family affairs, between spouses, there's a tendency to retaliate because someone close to you has wronged you, and so, I'll get back at you. It seems to be a normal part of human existence in Kali Yuga to retaliate. When someone offends you, misunderstands you, it's natural. You want to wish hell upon them, right? Look what you did to me. You put me through suffering. You misunderstood me. You're ruining my reputation. It's natural. May you go to hell. May the worst happen to you. But by restraining that, this is stated in the 4th canto of Bhagavatam, by restraining that, by a devotee restraining that tendency, you're in the fire of purification, and you come out of that fire purified. But you can really feel it, because you want to retaliate. You want, not maybe you do it yourself, but you want something to happen to that person. May you wind up in a car accident or something. That desire to check it is the fire of purification. To check that desire is the fire of purification. You really have to control yourself. Because the natural tendency is, I'll get back at you, or not that I will get back at you, but I wish something would happen to you. To check that is, you feel the fire of purification. So in answer to your question, looking at the situation in which Jamadagni is speaking this to Parashuram, he's telling him, stop the retaliation. Anything else?
Krishna. But sometimes devotees will use the argument that they're not Brahminical.
True. What can you say? It's true. This is a quality demonstrated by Brahmanas. Although a Vaishnava is supposed to be more than a Brahmana, but not everyone is even acting as a Vaishnava. What to speak of acting as a Brahmana? Yes?
You were talking about material desires, and I was thinking that I find it exhausting to always just desire for Krishna.
Really?
Yeah.
What universe do you live in?
I find it like really intense, and that's why sometimes I give up, because it's...
You give up and then what?
More suffering.
You give up on desiring Krishna's pleasure, and then what do you desire?
I just hold on to my material desires.
And that's blissful, isn't it? Full of knowledge and bliss. Bhakti is a lifelong career. It's not an overnight, okay, Krishna, tomorrow morning I want no material desires. That can happen in extraordinary cases. You have to be in it for the life. Make your life one of progressive development in Krishna consciousness. Not this all or nothing. Okay, today is December 5th. If by December 6th, tomorrow morning, I'm not free of all material desires, then I'm just going to go back to my material desires, dive deep into them. I tried. I said, Krishna, tomorrow morning make me completely free of material desires. Didn't work? Okay, where's the Maya? What about your whole life? This is a lifetime career. Chanting Hare Krishna with attention. Learning to act for Krishna's pleasure. You started your bhakti practice when you were how old? 19? I remember. 19? 18. How fortunate. So your whole life is one of developing closeness to Krishna. That's how life should go on. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.